How's it? Welcome back. It's me, Ryan Thwaites, with another guitar lesson for beginners. So, electric guitars, awesome. I love them. They're a lot more complicated than an acoustic guitar. So, I'm going to try and keep this really simple so that you can set your electric guitar up so that it sounds great. Okay. You know how I love the little whiteboard? I'm going to quickly show you that. Nice time to pause this, I think, just to have a little look and just try and absorb it. But effectively we can see we've got the instrument here, in this case an electric guitar, and it's plugged in via the jack lead, this wire, into the amplifier, amplifier, okay? Now I'll go through this all again in a bit more detail, but effectively on the electric guitar we can control the volume, the tone, and using the pickup selectors we also control the tone. We'll talk about tone in a second. Okay. On the amp, with the sound that we've sent to the amp, we can then also control the volume again, the tone again, which we do through bass, middle and treble on most amps, and then we can control something which is also known by a couple of different things. They are different to each other, but for the moment we can think of them as the same thing. Your gain, distortion, or your overdrive, which is the rock sound. Okay? I will be trying to bear this diagram in mind whilst I do this, but effectively, like I said, we've got our instrument where we control the sound, and once we've controlled the sound there, we're going to send that sound that we've created to the amp where we can further control the sound. I want you to think of it like that, like a chain of events, like a hose pipe, or like electricity flowing down a wire, which is exactly what the electric guitar does. Okay, so to have some practical examples, there's my old electric guitar again. Okay, as we can see, I've plugged it in to this jack lead, or rather, I plugged the jack lead into the guitar. Okay, or a 1/4-inch jack if you want to be special about it. This is just a cheap one, and we've got the other end, which you can just see out of shot there. I plugged it into an amp. Okay, now first tip. Okay, this amp's on and ready to go, so it's making a noise, right? Now we can hear, because it's already plugged in, when I plug it in and out of here, it doesn't really make any noise. Okay, the input will be labeled input, or in, or guitar in, or instrument, yeah, in. All the other ones, however fancy your amp is, will do other things, okay? It's normally to the furthest of one side. But like I said, when we plug it in and out, with this already plugged in, it doesn't make a noise. If I do it on this side, if we listen to this, yeah, that is the sound of a beginner plugging in an instrument. This is the sound of a real beginner plugging in an instrument. Yeah? Bad. Great way to test if it works, but that, unprofessional, bad. Avoid it. Plug the guitar in first, then plug it into the amp. Okay? Even better, have the volume on the amp down as well, so that it's definitely not going to make a noise. Okay, anyway, there we are. So we've got the guitar. Now that is my volume on the guitar. You all know how volume works. That is broken. Surprise, surprise. But you turn that up and down, and it doesn't matter what is happening on the amplifier, that's going to control the volume. When you're up on stage or doing your thing, that's your volume up and down. Now another little top pro tip would be, when you finish playing, turn the volume down on the guitar. When you're about to play, turn it back up. When you finish playing, turn it back down. Okay? Make it habitual. It's funny because I'm so ingrained in that when I finish with the guitar, I just turn it down, I'll hand it to my student, and they're like, oh, it's not working. And it's because the volume's down. So it's a really cool thing to get in the habit of. Anyway, right, volume, okay? Then we've got the tone, okay? That's a word that's quite easy to explain, because if I speak to you gently like this with a light voice and a delicate air, or compared to, don't take that tone of voice with me. Okay, it's the same voice, it's a different tone. It's the sound, okay? It's the quality of the sound, okay? Now, this tone control will control the quality of the sound, okay? In the same way that the pickup selector, this thing, will control the quality of the sound, okay? What it's actually doing is it's selecting which pickup you're using, okay? Now, very basically, if it's that side, it's this one. If it's one click over, it's these two. If it's in the middle, it's this one. If it's one click back, it's that one, these two. And if it's right at the back, it's that one, okay? That's very simplified, but that's a 5-way pickup selector. Sometimes they're 3-way, sometimes they're 2, depending on the setup, okay? We're not gonna go too much detail about it, but you will hear it changes the tone. The way it changes the tone is, if you remember from before, when we strum over the neck, it sounds different to when we strum over the bridge, okay? So whereas we're creating the sound, I could probably demonstrate that now. Here, if you listen to this, oh, excuse me. If you listen to this has got a very bright sound, whereas over here, I don't know if that's come across, but at home, where you strum changes the tone. Bright, warm. It's very subtle. Okay, so by creating the sound in a different way, it changes the tone, but remember I said you can think of these as microphones, by picking up the sound in a different place, you're going to get that same situation. So these will be bright and this will be warm, okay? Now let's just say we're on there, this pickup, and we adjust the tone, that's going to make it brighter and warmer again, okay? So there's a lot going on, just on the guitar end. I've got the amps just set in a neutral position, and let me just show you this. So pickup selector there, tone control here. Hold on. Okay. Hopefully this comes across. Can you hear? Warm. Okay. Now by simply, say, turning the tone to the other direction, I'm going to play the same thing. Okay, it's got brighter. If I then actually went to my pickup selectors, and I'm using these as well, it's going to be even brighter. And if I play over the bridge here, brighter still, because I'm creating a brighter sound. Yeah? Bright. Warm. So there's a huge amount of control. Now that might have gone into a little bit too much detail already, but I think the bottom line is that you want to start experimenting and being aware of how like each little thing is additive, okay? They add up and they stack. So that a very little change plus a very little change plus a very little change will create a big change, okay? So we've created a sound here, and then we send it to the amp, okay? And like I said from that diagram, we can do it again. At this point, I'm going to press stop, flip the camera around, and show you a couple of amps, so you can have a little look, and I'll try and explain that for you as simply as I can. Stand by. Righto, tiny little practice amp. It's probably what you want, or something thereabouts. We can see that's where we plug the guitar in, okay? So because the guitar is plugged in on the guitar side, it's on, because the red light is on, and that's power, obviously. Some mistakes I often see is, why doesn't it work? Well, that's not being switched, or why doesn't it work? Well, it hasn't been done at the wall, okay? Input, so there it is, okay? And we can see we've got a volume, which does volume, of course. And then we've got these two, treble and bass, okay? We're talking about warm tone. If we were to say turn the bass up and turn the treble down, you're going to get a warm tone on this amp. If you turn the treble up and the bass down, you're going to get a bright tone on this amp, okay? Again, I would suggest just experimenting with it, okay? You're using your ears, that's the only thing we've got. I think the 5 o'clock, the 5 setting halfway through, was sometimes referred to as 12 o'clock, because say on a different amp here, for example, if I take the volume, see the little thing, the little line, that's straight up, that's referred to as 12 o'clock, okay? So 12 o'clock or in the middle is a good place to start. Look, all on 5, okay? It's a neutral amp. Then we've got overdrive. We spoke about that before. That's your rock sound. So when the button's in, it's on a rock sound, and when the button's out, it's what we call clean, okay? Just normal sound, okay? We'll talk about gain in a second, but that is how much overdrive you want, how much rock sound you want, okay? Now I know there's loads of videos on the internet already explaining this, and experimentation is the order of the day, but here was a slightly more complicated one, okay? So obviously input, okay? Here we've got a volume. Her volume does what a volume does, okay? That's your clean volume, your normal sound, okay? And you can see it says clean above it. If I then look at these two, it says overdrive. So that's our distortion or our overdrive or our gain sound, okay? So we have to then select it by pressing the button. I thought I'd let that run. Woohoo! That's called feedback. We'll explain that in a bit as well. But when you're on this channel, if you will, then this doesn't do anything, okay? You've swapped it to this. So now you've got your volume and how much gain, overdrive or distortion, or how much rock sound you want, okay? So it's like kind of 2 amps in one, all right? And then we've got, again, we can see bass and treble. We've got something in the middle called contour, which is often referred to as mid or middle, okay? But same thing, those 3 things together are very similar to these 2 things together. We just got the third one in the middle frequencies. And together, what we're doing is equalization. That's the technical word, EQ, okay? So, no bass, no middle, lots of treble, really bright, okay? No treble, all the bass, really bassy or warm, and then obviously something in between, okay? So I'm gonna set them back to the 12 o'clock position, but like I said, you're gonna have to experiment, okay? There's lots of places where you can find how to set your instrument to create a particular tone, you know? If you wanna mimic the tone of a great riff, then there's a way of setting it. On your guitar and on your amp, obviously the type of guitar and the type of amp you're using has an effect as well, but you can look that up and you can try and copy it or emulate it. But experiment, like I said, we've only really got our ears to help us with this, okay? So, like we said, we got the instrument, we're sending a sound that we've sculpted to the amp, which we're then sculpting again, right? So, that rock sound that we want to hear, right? Now all I'm going to do on the little amp is press that button, the overdrive button. I'll show you again. Actually, what I'll do is I'll do this. Can I do it at the same time? Just about. Can I just about do this, right? So, clean, press it. Yeah. Rock sound. And now, I'll play the same thing. Rock sound, okay? If I was to, I don't know how well I'm going to be able to do this and show you, but like say I turn the gain all the way up, yeah, it's not only going to make it louder, but it's going to be even more rock sound. I've then got to compensate with the volume so that I don't hurt my ears. Something that's very easy to do with an electric guitar. Yeah, all I did was turn up the gain and then turn down the volume to compensate. Okay, and that's a little bit like that other amp. That's how that works as well. You've got the situation where, can I do this by looking at it itself? No, this is hard. There we go. Okay, so again, if I come in here, okay, input, clean. press the button, rock sound. Compensate with the volume. You need to compensate with the volume. I can turn the gain up to make it more rock sound, or down to have less distortion or less gain. Don't know if you can hear that. It's almost clean, but that also works as a volume. So now I want to compensate the other way by turning the volume up. Okay. Like I said, it's just a tiny overview just to introduce you to the thing. If you found that complicated, it's because it kind of is complicated. And even more so when you get to something like this, which has got a bazillion dials on it. Okay, like I said, the electric guitar is a very powerful tool. There's a lot we can do with it, and that's before we've gotten involved in like effects pedals and everything like that. So I hope that made sense. Have fun with it, experiment. Remember that if we're on distortion, by changing bass, middle and treble, or the pickup selector, or the tone control on your guitar, it's going to affect the sound of that distortion as well. And these subtle little differences all add up to create a huge spectrum of sounds that we can use with our electric guitar. All right, hope that made sense. Questions in the comments section below. But the name of the game is experimentation, and remember the professional tips I gave you at the beginning, and please take care of your hearing, because loud noises or continued exposure to loud noises can damage our hearing permanently. You don't want tinnitus. Look that up. Right, gotta go. Have fun. See you next time. Bye. Final afterthought. Remember how I said that the gain or the overdrive or the distortion dial on the amplifier gives you more or less of it? Okay. Not a lot of people realize this until for a very long time, but the volume, which is broken on this case, when you're on that setting, it'll control the volume, but it will also take away some of the rock sound. Okay, so if you're like got everything cranked up on full power there, and you're like, oh, it's not very loud and it's not very distorted, it's your volume on your guitar. Turn that volume all the way up to send maximum power to the amp, and that's going to give you maximum distortion. A good player will actually on stage be able to use the volume to change, if it's set correctly just on the edge, change from clean to distortion very subtly to accentuate something like a guitar solo or something like that. That you set it so it's just breaking up. Again, there's so much, it's so exciting. Oh, and one final afterthought was, I just wanted to explain what feedback was. You heard that gnarly sound before, okay? Effectively, the amp is so loud that the sound waves are hitting the strings, which are making the strings vibrate, which is sending more sound to the amp, which is then coming out the amp and making the strings vibrate. You know, what came first, the chicken or egg, or the sound or the feedback? But that's called a feedback loop. It can be used to great effect. It can sound pretty cool. Okay, I've just set the gain really high, really high. Yeah, awesome instrument. Have fun. Watch your hearing. Okay? Be careful your hearing. Have fun. Good luck. Bye.